today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be showing a couple different ways to do some jump scares or just some scare elements to your creative games. So I'll start off by showing examples of what they'll look like in game, and then afterwards I'll show you how to do them. Each time they'll have like a difficulty rating. Most of them are pretty easy because these are supposed to be for beginners. A lot of the things here are interchangeable, so it's basically just don't copy this exactly, just copy the systems. You don't have to copy the items and stuff, because a lot of the stuff here is placeholders and, you know, isn't supposed to look the best because it's just, you know, an example on how to make the thing. So let's get right into it. Again, like I said, a lot of the parts are interchangeable for some of them. So, for example, on the first one, the jump scare, you're gonna need a timer for 1 second, right? And this timer is going to start when receiving from channel 1. So what you're actually gonna want to do is place a stretched out trigger like this. So you get a trigger. Oh, that's not a trigger. You get a trigger, resize. You're gonna want to go depth. You're just gonna stretch it out until it meets the walls. And it kind of depends if people are jumping a lot during your map. You're going to want to not really have like jumping enabled, or just have a spot where you can't really jump here, because of the fact that if you just jump over it, it'll just negate the whole jump scare. I mean, unless you just want to make it wide enough to where if people jump, they'll still land on it anyways. That's all up to you. So anyways, you have this trigger here, and people are walking forward, then they step on it, it triggers that timer to go off, but at the same time it triggers this to appear, which, for my example, is just a torch. But it could be anything you want. It could be some custom creation, it could be just like one of the things from like a spooky gallery in the menu, but really anything. Anything you just put there, that's the thing that's going to pop up for the jump scare. And the way you're going to make this pop up is using this prop manipulator. For me, my thing is kind of broken and it wouldn't let me just place the prop manipulator and do it pretty basically. So if the same thing's happening to you, go ahead and do affect all objects in a zone. And you're going to want to make it 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5, or however big you want your thing to be. Again, all just examples. It really depends on what you're making. And priority, whatever, you don't have to mess with any of this. But starts hidden. You want to select to yes. Show props when receiving from 1. This is the important part. Show props when receiving from 1. This is gonna happen like when you step on the trigger. It'll show the prop, and then it'll trigger this clock for 1 second, and then the clock for 1 second will strike down on success, transmit on 2. And on 2, it'll make this prop disappear. So what you're going to want to do is have hide props when receiving from 2. So that when you step forward, it'll pop up with this, and then it'll go away after a second, just like a jump scare. And these are very, very easy to do. You just select which one you want. I have Halloween Scare 1, Very Loud, Whole Island, just, you know, for the example, but it depends, all based around what you want. And you just have to hook it up to channel 1, which is this trigger. And it'll play these, just depending on how loud you want it to be. I put 5 just to make it kind of surround sound kind of thing. And that's that. That one's... Here's this one, just the door opening one, where it's like, oh, the doors are creepily opening. This one's a little more complex. This one's a little more on the complex side. So what you're going to want to do is have these doors here, and you'll put these lock devices on them, have them perfect so that they have the little blue instead of the red question mark. Like this. See how it has a red question mark rather than this blue because it's on the door. Let's go ahead and do that. So what you're going to want to have, you're going to want to copy these settings, and then channels, whatever channels you want to use. And You're going to want to have starts locked, no. Visible during game, no. Open and receiving from the channels you want. But you're going to want these open and close when receiving from channels. You'll have this timer. This is one of the more important timers. Duration, 2 seconds, right? Depending on, how frequently you want your doors to open and close. I have mine set to 2 seconds, so it'll open. And then 2 seconds later, it'll close. 2 seconds later, it'll open. The start timer at game start, on. Visible during game, no. This is whatever you want it to be. But visible during game and show on HUD, you probably don't want. But you want it to start when receiving from 3. Because this is where it gets a little more complex. You want it to start when receiving from, reset when receiving from, and on success transmit on. So it's going to transmit here because it's already going because it starts on game start. So it's going to start here, transmit here, then it transmits to this thing, which it starts because of that other timer. Reset, we're not into that yet, and on success transmit on 3. So you can see that it's a back and forth. Start receiving from 3. Start receiving from 4, on success transmit on 3, on success transmit on 4. So it's a back and forth kind of motion. But they will be successful and they'll just time out and they won't be able to be used again. So what these timers are actually for is this one, on success, transmit on 4, right? These doors start closed, and with this lock device, it'll transmit on 4, which will open it. And then the other timer, on success, transmit on 3, will close it. So it'll just go in this constant motion of opening and closing. Now what these timers are for is to reset these timers, because they can only go for one time without being reset. And if you do that, they'll open and close one time, and that'll be it. They won't keep going in like a repetitive motion. Again, this is one of the more complex ones. And so what you're going to want to do is have on success transmit on 4. You see that? This will start when receiving from 4. This is a reset timer. So it'll go for 1 second, and it will reset this timer while this one is going, and then it can go back to this one, and it'll go again because it's been reset, so it's not timed out anymore. And this one also needs to reset, so it'll reset this one, and while this one's going, after it goes, it'll reset this reset timer. Again, complex. And there's another reset timer. Start when receiving from 3. It'll start when receiving from this one, the one that opens the door, and will reset when receiving from this one, because this one will be already going. So this one, again, you have to make sure these go shorter times because you don't want them to just reset, so nothing gets reset. It'll screw up the whole operation. So this takes 1 second to reset. While this one is still going, it resets this one, and then this one completes, then resets this one completes, resets this one completes, resets this one. It's a whole series. Let's see, on success transmit at 6, reset when receiving from 6. You want all of these channels to be different. So you do not want reset and receiving from 4 on this one, and reset when receiving from 4 on this one. So there's that. And then all these doors are going to be opening and closing. You can keep copying and pasting these and changing the different times to make it so that they open randomly, so they're not all opening at the same time. So like this one will open and close, and then it'll open again, and this one will close, where it's like all of them are different. Then there's this one. This one's a little less complex. This one's actually not complex whatsoever. So you're going to want to copy these settings over. Again, use the channels that you want to. Give you a second to look at them. These are really important. Lock when receiving from 8, close when receiving from 8. Again, this one's very basic. So you're going to step over this trigger, which transmits on 8, which will play this noise. Again, it's very custom. You can do whatever you want with the noise, with the volume, the sound distance. These are just my preferences. And activate when receiving from 8, because this trigger will transmit to this. It'll also make this close. So it's kind of like you step in the trigger and it's like, oh, I was about to go through the door, but it closed. That kind of thing. This one is the most basic one you could possibly get. So you're just walking forward, proximity mine, blows you up, it doesn't do any damage. Anyways, you're going to want to copy these settings over. And again, just customize them to your liking. For this one's a little more complex, but not nearly as complex as that door one. So you have all these lights, right? Some of them are flickering, that's optional. The way you make them flicker is just by doing this rhythm preset flash X1. And they flicker. That's optional, that just adds mood to the whole hallway. And another stretched out trigger. That's how you can tell it's going to be pretty basic. And there's all these different sounds. I mean, they're all the same, but that's just for surround sound. If you want to do that, that's all up to you. So, it's going to trigger on 7, and that's going to make all of these sounds go off, and all of these lights go off, and also display this message if you want to copy these over. Okay. Then, to make the lights go off, you're going to want to just take one singular one of these lights, copy these all the way over. This dimming amount, I was experimenting around with that. You don't need to change that if you don't want to. But the main part is turn off when receiving from 7. Again, high customizability to all of this. Turn off when receiving from 7. So when you step on that trigger, it'll turn off all the lights, right? So you see, you step on this trigger, plays all the noises, and turns off the lights, lights out. With this one's even more basic. You step on the trigger, it transmits on 9, which, you come up here, and this teleporter, you're going to want none for both of those. Teleporter rift visible, you want all of these to set to no. Just copy these settings completely over. And then you want teleport to and receiving from 9, because this trigger transmits on 9, which will teleport you here, because it's receiving from 9. And you want a very small barrier box here. Just copy these settings over. And this will teleport you over, because this actually isn't a part of here. It's just supposed to, like, teleport you. You can decide what happens to the player after this whole box thing. You can have a timer that teleports them elsewhere if you want. That's all up to you. But these helipads, you want this. This is from the rig gallery. And you just want to make it big because when you're inside of it, you just need to make it out of view. But when you're inside of it, it actually does this. Puts the player into first person. And also, remember how this trigger transmits on 9. You're going to want this speaker. Activate when receiving from 9. Spooky scared male, very loud whole island. Again, customize it to your liking, but that creates the whole thing of like you're sitting here in this dark room. Again, you only see the darkness. All this is invisible in game. And that's pretty much it.
For the clouds, floating like a bird as you sail for the clouds.